here we are going to do user defined exceptions. So we can define our own exception, and that is called as user defined exception. We can create our own class. For that, what you need to do is I create a class called as my exception. Okay. Now this is my own exception which I'm creating. It's not an inbuilt exception in Java. How to make a user defined or our own exception? By just extending it to exception class. Now once we make this class as an exception class, what happens? This my exceptions is actual exception which can be thrown, and we can catch those exceptions and take appropriate action. That is what we say a user defined exception. Where do we need it, or why do we need it? We have so many inbuilt exceptions like input mismatch, array index out of bound. We have so many exceptions. Why do we need? Well, to cater to the business scenario, we can have our own exceptions. So like for example, if a business says that the minimum balance should be 5,000 rupees in any account. Now if any person is trying to withdraw and the balance is going to be less than 5,000, and at that moment you want to throw an exception of your own, that business rule can be termed as an exception. Okay, now by doing this, we'll treat it as something special. We don't want to validate it. We want to treat it something special, and exceptions are treated as special and they need to be handled, and an appropriate message is supposed to be given to the user, or an appropriate page in real world scenario is shown to the user. That's exception handling. We don't want to get into so much details of it right now, but we should know that we can create our own exception. So for that, we create a class called as my exception, which extends exception class. Now what we do is this class now has the capacity or capability of throwing it. So we can throw such exception. So how do we showcase that? We can simply create a try catch block, and for just demonstration I can just say throw new my exception. Okay, we'll make it a little more, if the input is greater than 10, then we want to, do exception handling. So for that, I'll just have a scanner here with me. So I'm just defining my scanner to make it more, so I defined a scanner here. I defined an X variable here. Okay. And I'll ask from the user the value. So I'll say, so enter a number. And if the number is negative, then I'll have to give an exception. So what I'll do is I'll take X from the user at sc.nextInt, and if X is less than 0, then I have to throw an exception, say throw new my exception. The same exception has to be caught, and then this is done how this is. Okay. And then if X is less than 0, then throw new my exception. Now you have to say some message has to be given. So that's an action or exception handling for my exception. So I'll say number cannot be negative. That's some action which I have to take. Okay. So after defining it, so if it is positive, I don't want to do anything. Okay. So I'm not writing anything, or you can say thank you. That's the thing that in if else you can do it. But I just want to demonstrate how we can create our own exception and run it. So when I run this code and enter a number, first I'll have a positive case, say 8, nothing happens. But as soon as I have a negative number, say -7, it will give an exception saying number cannot be negative. This is called as user defined exception. How did we create? As simple as extending the exception class, which is inbuilt in Java. This class is a parent class which is present in java.lang package. We don't have to import it. It is by default there. Now let's just take one more example, a little complicated, so that we can understand the same scenario in terms of real world. So we'll create a simple class called as account class. Okay. And in account class, we will have to have an insufficient fund exception. So I'm just going to create a class called as main class. Okay. And before that, I'll just make in this I'll make an exception class. So I'll say class insufficient funds. Okay, that's my exception class. So I have to extend exception. Okay, now once I have created this class, oh, sorry, my spelling mistake, 1 second. Now once we create this class, what we need to do is we need to, I'm not doing anything here, or else we can have a variable say double needs. Now this is the amount by which actually you're going to be deficit of. So what I'll do is I'll try to create a constructor. Say exception class ka constructor would be this. So my class name is insufficient fund. So I'll just say insufficient fund, and it will take a double input, and it will, so that is say A, and needs is equal to A. That's what class insufficient fund will have. It will have needs, and insufficient is an funds is a constructor. Why it's a constructor? Because the same name as that of the class. Okay, I have done some spelling mistake. Okay, now after this, needs is equal to A. So, and finally I'll have, double get data as a function which will just return the needs value. That's it. So my exception class, my own exception class has been created, and that class name is insufficient fund, okay, exception, and it extends exception class, and it has a variable or a data called as needs. The constructor, I just assign the needs value, and a get data function just returns the need value. So a setter method and a getter method basically. Now what I'll do is I'll create an account class. So when I create an accounts class, I'll just make it very simple. I don't want to make it complicated. So I'll just say int, not int, I'll have balance, right? So I'll say chalo int balance or double balance. Let's keep everything as double. So I'll say double balance. So this is the balance amount which will be there when we create an account. So we need I'll again create a constructor. Okay, or rather I will not create a constructor. I'll just create a deposit method which can deposit the balance. So balance will be equal to, so balance plus equal to whatever the amount for deposit is given. So supposing I take a value x here, so plus equal to x. So just deposit will deposit it. Now void withdraw. But in the withdraw method, what I will do is I'll first check the balance. If, and withdraw will again have this double x amount. Okay. Now I'll check here if x is less than balance. Sorry, x is greater than balance, which means we can't withdraw. So I want to throw an exception. So I'll say throw, in this scenario, I'll say throw new insufficient fund exception, our own exception. But remember, it has a constructor which needs the needs value, how much you need or how much you are insufficient with. So that will be equal to the value of x minus the balance, because that much you are insufficient. Okay. So I created, I had a exception to be thrown, insufficient fund, and this needs will become x minus balance because x is greater than. If it is not greater than this, then what we can do is we can say else you need to have balance minus equal to the x amount, whatever the x amount is. In both the cases, we'll display the balance so that we will know what is the balance. So balance is, or new balances, we can see new balances plus balance. Okay, and I will have the same SISO in the withdrawal method also. Okay, now what happened here is I have to have a bracket here because this is and this is for if. Now I have created if else. Now since I have thrown this, I need to catch it. So I have to put this everything inside a try catch block. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll have a try block and I will catch this using catch block. So catch, which exception we have to catch? Insufficient fund. So insufficient fund exception and any object say E. What message you will like to give here, because you could not actually withdraw, you will say so no, you are trying to withdraw more than balance. Okay, that's what we have to do it. Now once this is done in the main, what I'll do is I will create an object of the account class, right? So I'll say account A is equal to new account. Now I have to deposit. So I'll say A dot deposit and I'll say deposit some 500 rupees. Okay, then I'll say A dot withdraw. So first I'll try to withdraw something less like only 200. But now let me do A dot withdraw and say something like 1000, which is not there. The balance would not be there. So let's see what happens when I run this code. When I run this code the first time, 500 got deposited. Then 200 was withdrawn. So basically 300 would be the new balance. And finally, when I'm trying to withdraw 1000, it's not allowing me. So it will say you are trying to withdraw more than the balance. This is an example of a user defined exception, a very simple example.